You talked about Test cricket. You talked about how you need to preserve Test cricket. Do you think it's a romantic thought, or do you think we are fighting the tide, or do you think it'll survive on its own?
I think it's a realistic thought. I think, quality always survives. It's a bit like, class players, form's temporary but class is permanent. I think it's a bit like that with Test cricket. Right now, 2020 is the flavour of the month. Everyone loves it, but at the end of the day, as a cricketer, I think you've got to be true to yourself. Why did you take up the game? And that's to fulfil your full potential, and you can't do that playing 2020 because you can't bat for a whole day, you can't bowl 30 overs, and as a cricketer, I think it wouldn't be that satisfying if I couldn't get out there and technically, mentally and physically challenge myself against the best players in the world over 5 days. That's why you train, that's why you make the sacrifices, and that's at the end of the day probably how you judge yourself.
Are you satisfied with the way Australian cricket's going? I mean, you can't lose 5 great players and still come back and win, which Australia is still doing.
I think you can, because right now I'm not sure the other sides have really improved that much that they've pulled away. And Australia, still had a very good side. Even though we lost players, we sort of lost them gradually when you look back. And there was good replacements who played a lot of county cricket, had played a lot in other conditions. And right now we've got a lot of players who've played in Indian conditions. So they've played around the world in front of big crowds, in front of TV cameras. So they're not overawed when they play for Australia.
You get excited watching some of the young Aussie players? Is there someone you see and say, wow?
Yeah, look, this young Steve Smith is probably the most talented cricketer we've seen for the last 20 years in Australia. He's going to make a huge impact on the international scene pretty shortly. Then you've got young blokes like Josh Hazlewood, Mitchell Starc from New South Wales, Patterson from Victoria. These are all quick bowlers who are going to make a big impact. And we'll probably have the first Muslim-born player to play for Australia within the next 12 months in Usman Khawaja. So there's exciting times on the horizon for Australian cricket.
If I asked the same question to somebody from Melbourne, or if I presented your answer to somebody from Melbourne, he said, there goes a Sydney man again, packaging the baggy green along with the New South Wales cap.
That's the way it should be, mate. That's why Australian cricket's strong. But I did mention a Victorian player, young Patterson. Yeah, look, I must admit, I can see the argument there, but when I was captain, I always saw Australian cricket. I never saw New South Wales cricket or Victorian or Western Australian, and I think that's our strength in Australia, that we do pick the best players and there isn't that state-by-state parochialism. I guess people may perceive it that way, but I genuinely think we get the best 11 players on the park no matter where they're from.
It's a big call to make for young Steve Smith, 20 years. I mean, I'm just looking back. Ricky Ponting started in 95, 96, so that would have been about 15 years ago. So you would have probably seen him a little before that.
Yeah.
And Ricky Ponting was a player who sort of made everyone sit up and take notice.
Yeah, this guy, look, I guess I'm saying this guy, maybe he's not the skill of a Ponting batting-wise, but this guy is the all-round package. He's got potential to be a very good leg spin bowler. He's an excellent fieldsman and an exciting batsman. So maybe I'll rephrase that. He's definitely the most exciting all-round talent we've had for the last 20 years. He's obviously not a Shane Warne bowling-wise or a Ricky Ponting batting yet, but as a whole package, he's pretty unique.
Where do you see the game evolving? Do you think night test cricket is possible at all? Do you see one-day cricket dying? Do you sometimes look at the game and think about it from that point of view?
Test cricket at night is definitely possible. I would love to have played day-night test cricket. I think it's exciting, brings another dimension to the game. And you can see people want a bit of change, they want that excitement. Why not bring that into Test cricket? We've got it in 2020s. Let's get a pink ball in there, play day-night if it's possible. Obviously in England it's not really possible because it doesn't get dark till 10 o'clock in the summer. Maybe in the subcontinent the dew might make it impossible. So you've got to have common sense around it as well.
But in Australia you think game on?
Yeah, why not? I mean, people said you couldn't play day-night one-day cricket, and all of a sudden they turn up first night. The masses came to see it, and I think they did the same for Test cricket.